Hi, so welcome everyone. Today we'll be doing a restorative practice, a nice cooling practice to do now that the weather is heating up. A practice that will soothe the nervous system and also gently open and stretch the body. So just in regards to props, in restorative practice, we always, we do use a few props. And this is, depending on what you have available. So 1 to 2 bolsters, 2 to 3 blocks, 1 to 2 blankets. It's good to have a chair nearby. That's an option depending on if you need the height of a chair. Have an eye pillow to cover the eyes, and maybe like a light sheet or blanket if you need to cover the body at any time if the body starts to cool down. So we'll get started. We're going to start in Supta Baddha Konasana. Kelly's going to be demonstrating and doing the class throughout, and I'll just talk you through. So just in regards to setting up, if you've got those blocks available, we've got a couple of blocks underneath the bolster. So I might just get Kelly to come up so you can see how they are positioned. One block on that flat kind of lower side. Second block on the second height, just supporting the bolster, giving it a little bit of this slant and a little bit more height so that when she comes back to lie back, got the blanket underneath the head, it's creating this opening across the chest, collarbones spreading, shoulders can relax, and then arms supported by the floor. So soles of the feet together in your Supta Baddha Konasana. And then if you've got a blanket, or maybe, the option is to use some cushions or some extra blocks just for some support underneath the thighs. But if you've got that extra blanket, you bring it out so that it's quite wide, like this. Fold it in half, and we'll just roll it up. So you create this kind of long sausage. And you will need that length to support both thighs. So this will then go over the top of the feet, and then she'll grab either side and pull it underneath the thighs. Option here is to cover the eyes with a cloth or with the eye pillow, and then you've got the light blanket to cover if you're feeling a little bit cool. So setting up in your Supta Baddha Konasana, and we're going to hold this pose for about 5 minutes. So I'll just give you a moment to set up that pose, gather the props, making sure the back of the neck feels comfortable, got support underneath the back of the head, support underneath the thighs. Chest is open, hips are open. And just lying back, coming into this pose. Just allowing the body to settle for a few breaths. So we can take some deeper inhalations into the belly. Maybe a longer exhalation out through the nose or out through the mouth. And just let the eyes settle and soften, eyelids gently closing. And now as you come in and prepare for your practice, you're moving away from that external vision, looking out, and drawing all that information in and just letting go of that and come into that internal vision now. Eyes resting, eyeballs sink back into the eye sockets. Almost as if the thoughts are drawing away from the front of the head and sinking back into the back of the brain, resting there. And just being here with the breath for a moment, allowing the body to soften and settle. Just allow yourself to pause now. Allow yourself to have this space to tune back in, tune back into the body, and now just come to rest the awareness on the breath. Simple inhalation and exhale. And we'll be holding this pose for just another couple of minutes. And as you're here, I just invite you to explore the breath. So noticing the sensations, following the breath as it moves in through the nostrils, moves into the belly, the sides of the ribs. Feel the chest and the collarbones opening, spreading. And then watching the exhalation out. Notice how the body finds some softness. Notice how the body starts to let go on the exhalation without any effort. It's naturally softening and releasing. And as you keep your focus and awareness on the breath, notice how the thoughts come and see if you can gently let them go on the exhale. As if now you've become an observer of the thoughts and you're not indulging or engaging with them. Just allowing them to run their course as they come, and then gently we just let them go. Last half a minute here. Just noticing any areas, maybe deeper areas of the body, those deeper layers starting to gently let go. Perhaps the breath is starting to move into more subtle parts of the body. Taking a deeper inhalation into the belly. When you're ready, long, smooth, extended exhale out. Next inhale, you can start to come out of the pose, maybe simply open the eyes to begin with. Compress the palms into the floor and start to lift up the spine. And taking a moment, just sitting up. And from here, we will move into a Supta Virasana. So you can keep the same setup with the bolster and the blocks. If you didn't have the blocks as an option, bolster on the floor is fine if that's suitable for you. If you don't have the props available for your Supta Virasana, maybe you need a bit more height, generally, you can always just lie back over the bolster and just simply cross the legs in easy cross-legged position. Otherwise, Supta Virasana with the bolster, coming back. And noticing with that slanted bolster, there's not so much need to have a gap between the edge of the bolster and the buttocks because you've got a little bit extra height. Should feel actually quite nice for the lower back with this extra height. Actually feels quite nice on the knees and also on the ankles. So modifying as you need for your Supta Virasana, otherwise simply coming back using the same setup. And always, if there's the option to cover the body, cover the eyes with an eye pillow. The body will cool down in this practice. So lying back now and just noticing how it's feeling. We do generally give a little bit more height in the restorative version of the pose, just so there's not so much of a strong stretch or stress sensation on the body. So if you're feeling like you need that extra height, now's the time to grab that and modify. Otherwise, starting to tune back into the breath. Just allowing the body a few moments to settle into the pose. And the beauty of this restorative practice is we do hold the poses for a little bit longer, and it gives you that time to explore the pose, explore the different sensations come up as they change over that longer period of time. But also important to give that extra support and height, allowing the body to release. So if it's a little bit too much of a strong sensation very quickly, the body will tighten and stiffen and may not necessarily let go. It's better to prop yourself up a little bit more. Just allow that body to release and unwind. So being here, noticing the breath. Feel the front of the body open, chest, belly soft. Feel the pressure through the fronts of the shins, feet, toes. Backs of the arms resting. Shoulders soft. Back of the neck releasing. And softness comes to the eyes, the jaw, and the tongue. couple of minutes in this pose. And just resting the awareness on the breath again. Simply letting go of thoughts as they arise. And just starting to become aware of sensations as they come and as they go. Rather than getting involved or caught up, we become an observer. We'll be here one more minute. Maybe throughout this restorative practice and longer holds of these postures, you start to notice the body starts to realign itself as it unwinds, naturally finds its alignment. And that is done through no effort on our side, just as simply by tuning in and watching the breath. We allow these sensations, these changes to occur naturally. Last few breaths here. Can start to take some deeper inhalations, extended exhales. We'll begin to move out of the posture, maybe simply opening the eyes to begin with. When you're ready, you can press the palms down, start to lift up through the spine, and take a moment just sitting in Virasana. And we'll release when you're ready and move into a supported downward dog. So with some support using a bolster, maybe a folded blanket, whatever height you need to support the head so that the head can rest. If you're lucky enough to have some straps, wall straps at home, you can use those. Otherwise, just a simple setup. Not sure if that's how you normally set up.
Should be okay.
Yeah. start by lifting the heels up, lengthening through the spine, backs of the legs. Maybe a few breaths here, pressing the palms into the floor, spreading the fingers. Just noticing if you've got that height correct. You know, you don't want the head kind of hovering above the props. There is a pressure into the hairline between the forehead and where the hair begins. Head can rest. When you're ready, you can lengthen the heels down to the floor. If that doesn't suit you, if the heels maybe lift off the floor, there's an option to pull a folded blanket underneath the heels, or maybe a bolster. Even if you can get your heels down, it's actually quite nice to practice with that little bit of extra height. Be here in your downward dog. We still have some effort that is needing to be done in this pose, you know, to hold yourself there. There is some pressing down through the palms, some activation through the triceps, biceps, the lengthening of the spine, lift through the quads, the inner knees. But also there should be that real resting of the head. Let the head be held by the support, held by the props. And as the head rests, so does the mind, the thinking brain can soften. The thoughts start to slow down, become less intense, less aggressive, and maybe they start to fade more into the background, like background noise. They're there, they're still occurring, but they're in the distance. Just half a minute more here. Start to become aware perhaps of where you're overdoing. See if you can back off a little. Find that balance. Effort, effortless effort. Last few breaths. And from here we will make our way into a supported child's pose. So you can use the same props that you've got here. Kelly will just bend the knees down. Knees come wide on the outside edges of the bolster. She'll draw the bolster in towards the pelvis. sitting bones down onto the heels, and she lengthens the front of the body onto that support, turning the head or even resting the head on some support. And turn the head to the side. If there is space between the buttocks and the heels, you can just pop a cushion or a folded blanket there so the sitting bones can have some support. They're not just floating in space. Be here, close the eyes. Come to rest in this pose. Tuning back into the breath. As you inhale, breath fills up the front of the body. Feel that slight pressure or pushing into the props. Moves into the back of the body and spreads the rib cage. On the exhalation, there's a slight sinking, softening, as if the body starts to melt into the props. The edge of the body and the edge of the props becomes blurred. Head can remain to this side. Otherwise, option is to simply lift the head and turn to the other side. Notice how the shoulders are feeling. Can you breathe into the space between the shoulder blades? Arms are resting. Elbows wide so we can soften around the shoulders. Be here, last few breaths. Taking some deeper inhales now. Longer exhales. Start to move out of the pose, opening the eyes, using the hands to press into the floor and lift you up. Just come up slowly. Be there for a moment. And when you're ready, we'll come up to standing. So we'll take a couple of standing forward bends, Prasarita Padottanasana, followed by a supported Uttanasana. So you'll need props to set up both. I'll just grab a few. Maybe a blanket underneath the head, folded blanket for your Padottanasana. And then maybe you need a little bit more height for your Uttanasana. A couple of bolsters. You can have a block either side to bring the hands onto. So maybe Kelly will just first demonstrate bringing the legs wide in your Padottanasana. And the forehead will come down to rest onto your support. I mean, you can use your extra bolster height if you need to. And then from there, we can pull in these extra bolsters and support. We'll bring the feet to hip width apart and come into supported Uttanasana, and she'll rest the hands on top of the blocks. She's got that kind of wide spread with the elbows away from each other, away from the shoulders, bringing some kind of space between the shoulder blades, allowing the shoulders to relax. If you don't have the extra blocks, you can always rest the hands on top of the bolster. And the other option here is to use a chair for Uttanasana or for both poses. You can come into your Padottanasana, but there is that option to rest the forehead on top of the chair. And maybe that's just needed for your Uttanasana. Put a bolster on top, blanket, whatever you need, just to get some more height. And again, you've got to tune into those sensations that are arising. If it's feeling too strong, if you're not able to straighten the legs, get some more height. And use the props. This is a really good practice to be able to explore using props. And by props, I mean, our traditional yoga props or whatever you have around the house. You don't need a yoga chair, just a simple dining chair will do. But, we're using the props, we're using enough height to meet the body. We're not forcing the body down towards the props, creating injury or a lot of stress sensation. We're using the props to meet the body, creating enough height so that the body can rest. And when the body rests and the breath slows, the nervous system can begin to settle. So being here, with the breath, inhaling, exhaling. Notice where effort is required, lifting through the quadriceps, inner knee, strong through both legs, support of the hands. The spine can unwind, the head, top of the head can rest. And then the breath can start to settle. The breath is a good indicator of if the body is under stress or not. The breath starts to become hard or quick. Maybe the body is under a little bit more stress than it needs to be, and you can use some extra support. And then the breath starts to soften and slow down, becomes more even and smooth. And as the breath unwinds, the body unwinds, the thoughts will start to settle, and the parasympathetic nervous system will engage, rest and digest response. And that's when we start to release deeply stored stress or tension. We bring the body and the self and the nervous system back into balance. So half a minute more here. Start to notice different sensations as they start arising now. You've been in the pose for an extended period of time. What's coming up for you? And you can prepare now to come into Uttanasana. Feet come together, maybe you lift up, bring the hands forward, lengthen the spine. Feet at hip width apart. Grab your extra props as you need. Bolsters, blankets, chair. And when you're ready, head comes down on the support. If you've got the option of the blocks, you can rest the hands on top of the blocks. And here is where you start to notice, do you need to modify? Is there enough height underneath the head? Are the sensations too strong? Or are they there and, over time they'll start to back off as the body settles and opens a little bit more? Noticing the breath. You can start to use the breath, directing it to places where maybe there's a stronger sensation, maybe some discomfort has come about. Too much discomfort, back off. If it's a sensation that you can be with, just watching, observing, directing the breath there, allowing it to unwind. Be here. Breath moving into the back ribs, side ribs, shoulders softening, arms draping, head resting. Take a few deeper breaths now. Start to notice the connection between the soles of the feet and the floor. The whole of the sole of the foot, toe pads. Feel that sense of groundedness into the floor. You can bring the blocks underneath the shoulders and straighten the arms and lift up through the front of the body. Just come up slowly, taking a moment here. When you're ready, you can bend the knees and stand up. Let's take a Tadasana. Just for a moment, feeling that sense of groundedness. Eyes can remain closed. Just noticing where the weight is resting on the feet, front of the foot, middle, back of the foot. And slowly opening the eyes, and we'll move into a supported back bend. So you'll just need one bolster for this. I mean, if you don't have a bolster, you can always use a folded blanket or even a pillow. So one bolster and then a folded blanket for the head. Yeah. So I usually leave some space between the bolster and the blanket so that the shoulders can rest and the arms can rest here. So Kelly will bring her buttocks towards the bolster, but you're not kind of jamming it right into the buttocks and creating such a strong sensation in the lower back. There's a little bit of space so she can come back. We've got the rib cage, back of the ribs supported by the bolster. The arms can rest in that space. Elbows bent and the back of the head supported. You might need a little bit more height underneath the back of the head. So notice how the neck is feeling. Depending on the height and density of the bolster, if it's very firm and high, you could also, if it's feeling a little bit strong, put an extra blanket underneath the buttocks and just bring the height up a little bit more there. So we're going to remain here with the knees bent for the first 30 seconds, feet on the floor. And starting to tune into sensations arising. This can be quite strong, especially if it's practice in the morning. Maybe then you need a little bit more height, a little bit more support. The option is to remain here with the knees bent, or if you're feeling like you could go a little bit deeper, you can straighten the legs out. One leg straightens, second leg straightens. You can press the heels down into the floor, not completely, just allowing the legs to roll out to the side. There is that gentle pressure of the heels into the floor, toes come up towards the ceiling. But you're not overdoing either. There's a sense of awareness in the legs. And start to notice the connection points, heels, backs of the leg, space behind the knees, and the heaviness and earthiness of that pelvic bowl. Back ribs spreading on the bolster, backs of the shoulders, head supported, backs of the arms resting, backs of the hands. Eyes can close. The option is to remain here with the legs straight. Otherwise, going a little further, a little deeper, a little stronger, you can cross the legs in an easy cross-legged position. And changing the cross of the legs, opposite shin comes in front. Just be here, letting the body settle once again. Taking note of any sensations as they arise. And feeling the breath move into the body. Inhaling, exhaling. Can bring the knees together and place the feet on the floor now, starting to come out of the pose. You can just press the feet into the floor and now lift up the pelvis, and we'll just slide that bolster out. Rest the feet on top of the bolster. Feet can come wide and the knees can rest together. Take a moment here, breathing into that place where the bolster was connecting with the back. And just pushing the bolster away with the feet. We'll just take a few knee drops, moving the bolster. So feet will come to the outside edges of the mat, and we'll lift up the toe end of the feet, stretching the arms out at shoulder height. Take an inhalation, exhaling the knees to the right side. Inhaling the knees up to the center, and exhaling the knees to the left side. You can just repeat this a few times, inhaling up and exhaling down. Just releasing through the spine, releasing through the back of the body. Inhale up, exhale down. Maybe there's a gentle squeeze of the knees in towards the chest. Otherwise, releasing the feet come together when you're ready. We'll release the feet onto the floor and take a twist. So feet come down onto the floor, knees are bent, and we'll cross the right leg over the top of the left. And the hips will lift up and move over to the right side. Take an inhalation, lift up the feet, draw the knees towards the chest, and exhale the knees over to the left side. Arms can rest at shoulder height, bringing in openness to the chest, to the collarbones. Or you can rest the left hand on top of the thigh. Both options are fine. Couple more breaths here. Breathing into the rib cage. Releasing through the spine. Take a deeper inhalation. Exhale. Next inhale, starting to move out. Lifting the top knee, starting to unwind. Let the pelvis just roll back, spine unwind by itself, uncross the legs. Square off the pelvis. And when you're ready, crossing the left leg over the right, hips move to the left side. Lift up the feet, draw the knees towards the chest. Exhale, the knees over to the right. If you feel like the knees are hovering off the floor, you can always pull some support blanket, bolster underneath for them to rest. Sometimes that extra space means that they can over time start to sink a little further. arms resting, or the option to rest the palm on top of the thigh. Last few breaths. Take a deeper inhale, exhaling. Next inhale, starting to unwind and release. Just come out slowly. Allow the body to kind of unwind itself. Uncross the legs, rest the feet or draw the knees into the chest. And from here, we'll make our way to the right side. And taking our last pose before we come into Shavasana. So taking a forward bend, Paschimottanasana, with support. So you might want a folded blanket underneath the buttocks. We'll use the blocks as a little kind of, build a little tower with the blocks and a bolster. If you've got that option, you can use books, or you can simply just use the bolster by itself. If you do have extra blocks, you can always put a block in between the calves. So you're creating a little bit of space between the feet. So the feet are about hip width apart. So these blocks can either be on that higher height, giving you a bit more support, or you can have a blanket on top, another bolster. Other option is to use the chair for this one. I know, Kelly, you can probably come down a little lower, so maybe come a little lower, and you've just got a little bit more support with the blocks rather than just using the bolster. So hands come behind and she's lifting up through the spine for a moment, opening up across the chest and the collarbones. And when she's ready, she'll lengthen forward. She can take the outside edges of the feet. Elbows come wide. And you're not kind of strongly holding the feet and drawing the sole of the foot back. The hands are simply resting there so that the arms and the shoulders can soften. And perhaps over time, you can let go of the feet and the arms can rest onto the bolster. So this one is, everyone really sets this pose up differently. So take the height that you need. Remembering there is the option to use the chair, resting the forehead onto the chair. 2 bolsters, bolster and a block, bolster and a blanket, turning the blocks up onto that highest height. Do what the body needs, do what the body's telling you. And you'll notice that Kelly's spine is still lengthening. She hasn't got, a lot of rounding in the spine. There is some softness there compared to our stronger practice of this pose where we're trying to encourage more length in the spine. There is still that softening across the upper back and some rounding through the length of the spine. And that's not a bad thing. You're creating space between the vertebrae. You can start to breathe into that space. Having the elbows wide creates some space between the shoulder blades. You can breathe into that space. And now just letting the head rest, letting the head be supported. And it's less about a stretching or strong sensation in the back of the legs, but it's more about allowing the nervous system to settle in this forward bend. It's good for anxiety, worry, stress. But we can also overstretch and stress the body in this pose if we're overdoing it. So just back off a little. Allow yourself and give yourself permission to be supported and receive this gentler practice. Observe the body as it starts to let go and settle. Observe where the breath can easily move to. Back of the body, into the ribs, length of the spine. Notice the connection between the belly and the thighs. The forehead and the bolster. Remaining here, a few more breaths. Let's take some deeper breaths into the back of the body, front of the body. As we prepare to come out, come up slowly, taking your time. Simply lifting the head to begin with. It's coming up to Dandasana, maybe for a moment. Maybe the eyes are still closed. And then we'll open the eyes and move into Shavasana. So you've got the bolster there. You can use the blocks if you want with the bolster on top to rest the calves onto. So both the blocks on there, highest height there with the bolster on top. Other option is to use the chair to rest the calves on, or you could, not use any props. Use bolster underneath the backs of the knees. Folded blanket underneath the head. Eye pillow if you need. Maybe covering the body that's feeling cool. Do you want the blanket? Just taking a moment to set yourself up. Backs of the knees are touching the edge of the bolster or the edge of the chair if you're using the chair. Should feel like a bit of a release for the lower back. Backs of the arms resting, palms turn up towards the ceiling. The back of the head resting on the blanket. Eye pillow resting across the eyes. You may start to notice throughout this practice that as the body unwinds and let go, parasympathetic nervous system starts to engage, rest and digest. The digestion starts to work. Some noises from the belly as the body starts to rest. Starts to unwind and let go of tension on that deeper level. Allow the awareness to rest gently on the breath. Let the thoughts come, and let the thoughts go. Let the body release and soften now. Start to bring your awareness back to the body. You can rest the palms of the hands on top of the belly and take a few deeper breaths here. Go slowly as you come out of this practice. Knees draw into the chest. Slowly roll to the right side. And pause there as long as you need. Be on the side, resting. And when you're ready, you can make your way up. Sitting for a moment, closing the eyes. Palms come together. Namaste. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, be well. And take the time out to pause. Thanks guys.